Hey everybody, it's Emily at Homeschooling, and today we're going to be talking about the books that I read with my 15-year-old this school year. So we just wrapped up 9th grade, and I like to kind of reflect on what we read, and last year I had her rank the books we read. And I thought that was fun, and it was a really interesting view into her thought process. So I did that again this year. So these are all of the things that we read together this year. We didn't read as many books because The Lord of the Rings took up half our school year, I feel like. It took us so long to get through that because we were both sick several times. So we didn't get through as many of the books as I hoped we would. There are some things that we didn't get to that I'm just rolling over to next year because I still really want to get to them. But let's talk about what we did read. We read The Win-to-Be Puzzle by Lois Lowry. This is how we kicked off our year. And I wanted to read this because I thought it was really interesting and I wanted to see what she thought of it. This is a book about this bog body that they found, and they know like the location of the body. They know about how long ago the body was buried, but we don't know like why they're there. So the author took the science and the history and all of that and then created two scenarios where maybe this is what happened. You're following like these two different characters and like how they could have become the bog body. So it's just a really interesting look at like archaeology, at anthropology, at history, and like that kind of thing. So it's really, I thought it was fun. We read Eva by Peter Dickinson, and I've talked about this book a lot because I think it's a really fascinating story. This is a book about a near future scenario where science has come up as far as being able to transplant a human brain into the body of a chimpanzee, because like we're following a character who was in this terrible car accident and she's broken and beyond repair. So they pull her mind out and put it into the body of a chimpanzee. And now she wakes up and she's starting to realize what has happened to her and has to like figure out how to move forward with that. And I just think it's a really interesting story. We read Macbeth, and this was our Shakespeare selection this year. I try to do one each year in high school. And I usually actually start it in 8th grade. Last year we read Romeo and Juliet. So this year we read Macbeth. I don't really have to explain what Macbeth is, do I? It's a Shakespearean tragedy. And I just thought it would be one that she would like. We read Lord of the Rings. We did the audiobooks because I wanted to listen to the Andy Serkis narration, and I highly, highly recommend that. If you're going to listen to Lord of the Rings, that you get your hands on the Andy Serkis audiobooks. They are so good. He does all of the voices, but the voices he does all sound like the characters from the movies. So if that's like how you know Lord of the Rings best, if you've seen the movies a lot, it's a great way to go about the stories. We read The Mona Lisa Vanishes by Nicholas Day. This is a nonfiction story about like how the Mona Lisa was stolen, but it's also like how the Mona Lisa even came to be in the first place. So you're like getting a history of Leonardo da Vinci. You're getting a lot of information about police work in France at the turn of the century. You're getting a lot of stuff about how the painting was stolen in the first place and all these different scenarios for like what could have happened. It's very interesting. We read Dry by Neil and Jared Schusterman, which is a survival story about a scenario called the Tap Out, where there's this terrible drought. It's like building up, and no one's prepared for it. And then one day, none of the taps work. There's no more water in California. And it's about like what happens during that and how people are able to survive. You're following a group of teenagers as they try to figure out how to find water, how to survive, what they're supposed to do. It's a whole lot of terrible things happening, but it's a one-off story. It's not a series, so it does wrap up at the end. And then we have A Cloud of Outrageous Blue, which was the wild card I had in our stack this year that I didn't know if we were going to get to it or not. This is a story set during the medieval period, and we're following a character who is a teenage girl with synesthesia. Synesthesia, I never know how you say it. And she sees colors and everything, and she thinks she's been cursed with this. Her parents have died, and her brother sends her to live at this priory because he has no way of taking care of her otherwise. She doesn't have any other prospects, so he sends her to this priory. She's not becoming a nun, she's just living there, and it's set during the plague. So there's a lot in here about like the Black Death and the way people are reacting to it, and how she believes she was sent there because of this and what she has to do to help people. And it's just it's very beautiful. This book is gorgeous, by the way. It is full of art. So like there are these like 2-page spreads of just beautiful pictures to tell the story. And it's just a really good book. Okay, so now that I've told you all the things we read, let me share my daughter's ranking. I think we're going to go worst to favorite. So her least favorite book of the year was Dry, which she explained her reasoning, and it would spoil things for me to tell you. 2 of these books, her reasonings are spoilers. So I can't really tell you the exact reason why, but if you've read this book, I think you probably know. She didn't like the ending. It kind of all fell apart at the end for her. She was really invested all the way through though, so while she says it's her least favorite, it's still not a bad book. Like, I don't want everyone to think this is a terrible book, because it's not. But all 4 of my kids agree with her that like Neal Shusterman could have gone a little harder at the end. And that's all I'm gonna say. Her next least favorite was Eva. She said she just wasn't as interested in the plot of the story. She was kind of bored, which I knew it was 50-50 if she was going to like this book or not. I think it's a really interesting concept. I love the idea of like, because we can doesn't mean we should. It's kind of along the same lines as things like Jurassic Park. Like, just because we have the scientific technology to do something doesn't necessarily mean it's a good idea. And I don't know, I always think that kind of stuff is interesting. Regina does not. Then her ranking goes to The Mona Lisa Vanishes. I guess it didn't leave as big of an impression on her as I thought it would, but I still think it's a really neat book, so I really liked it. But she was not a huge fan. She thought it was fine. Nothing against it, just it wasn't one of her favorites. So those were like her 3 least favorites. The rest of these were all things that she liked, so we're ranking them based on that. So number 4 was The Windaby Puzzle, which was about where I expected her to put it. I knew it wasn't going to be like her favorite book of the year, but it was still interesting enough that she remembered in detail like what happened in this book by the end of the year. That was the first thing we read. Then A Cloud of Outrageous Blue, and she loved this especially because of how it ends, which I can't tell you what that is, but that is what she loved about the book. So take that as you will. Then she put this at the 2nd place spot, Lord of the Rings, which I actually was surprised. I thought this was going to be her number 1. We spent the most time with it. We read this from like November through March. So like half our school year was spent listening to Lord of the Rings. And I thought it would be her favorite, but it was only her 2nd favorite. And I think she would probably still say she likes the movies better. And her first favorite book, her absolute favorite thing we read all year, was Macbeth, which I did not expect at all. I did not know that this would be her favorite thing, but it is. And it is because it is full of murder. She, in her morbid little heart, loved this because there was a lot of murder. So now I got to figure out what our next Shakespeare is going to be, because I was planning on Taming of the Shrew or A Midsummer Night's Dream, just to change it up. We've read too tragedy type books. I wanted to do something more fun, but apparently she would prefer more death. So I don't know what we're going to read next year now. I'll have to think on that. But this was her favorite book of the year. We read the play, we read we read this graphic novel version, which is almost the whole play. It's minus a couple little bits here and there. So we did go and read some of the actual play, just some of the like monologues and stuff. We watched what did we watch? Forget which one it was. It was like a black and white, was it Denzel Washington? I think that's the one we watched. The movie didn't work as well for her. We had to kind of skip around because she got bored. Apparently the story left a big impression on her. So those are the books we read in 9th grade. I'm excited to start pulling together what we're going to read for 10th grade, because that's what I'm going to be doing for the next couple of weeks, is planning out all the things we're going to read next year. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in my next one. Happy reading. Bye.